Our guest tonight is an absolute legend of stage and screen, Sir Ian McKellen.
Very nice to be back. I thought I should come back. I've been here quite recently, but as it was announced on the internet just 10 days ago that I died, I thought I'd better just turn up and show you that I didn't. And I've been talking to a couple of schools today, and that's what I do in some of my spare time. Village schools outside here. I met a young boy being bullied. Oh dear, he was in tears. He was about 15. He said, I love the theatre. That's good. Yes, and, I like musical theatre, and everyone laughs at me. Oh dear. I said, it'll be all right. Once you get away from school, you'll find lots of boys who like musical theatre, and you'll be absolutely fine. Oh dear, but what a worry it is growing up. So, the law of the land is that we won't add an extra worry, and I go around telling them to be nice to each other, and you know, they get the point. My God, they don't even have to have it made to them. No one's born prejudiced. No one's born disliking somebody because they're different. No baby's born with anything other than love. It wants to love everybody. It's interested in everybody, and as I say, these kids don't need reminding of that because they're close enough to birth to not quite be absolutely prejudiced. But what a contrast that is to when I first came out, when I was 49 years old. Because there was a new law being established here called Section 28. And if you don't know what that was, Google it, you will not believe. Section 28 of the Local Government Bill under Mrs. Thatcher said that there could be no talk about homosexuality of a positive nature in any state-maintained school on the grounds that it would be promoting homosexuality. If you talk about the subject, you'll be trying to convert people, change their sexuality. This nonsense was believed and passed. The other objectionable remark in the Act was that gay people only had pretended family relationships. They couldn't have real family relationships because they're not real people, really, are they? Second-rate, queer. That was the word I was brought up to believe that I was, queer. So I say to these boys and girls, oh, sweethearts, we're all different. Just look around at the faces. You don't look like anybody else. Why should you think like anybody else? Why should you feel like anybody else? And then there were three sassy gals in their sixth form sitting there, and one said, no, I'm talking for these two. We're bi. Good, that's fine. But she said, if we're with a boy, presumably we're straight, are we? And then if we're with a girlfriend, presumably we're lesbian. We don't know where we are. We don't want labels. Oh. And the light went on. Yes, what labels do we possibly need? Except the one label that matters, your name. I suppose I only call myself gay so insistently because for years people called me queer. And I wanted to say, no, I'm not queer. I'm perfectly normal, perfectly ordinary person. And I'm gay. But actually, gay doesn't sort of sum it all up, does it? I don't know what spectrum of sexuality you feel you're on, but I'm not one end nor the other, and I'm dancing about in the middle, and I suspect we all are, really. And maybe that is the future, that the laws are non-specific. You may not discriminate on any fucking ground. Because we're all different and the list is too long. LGBTQI, where does it go? I mean, where do we end? Let's drop a ball and just be what we are. Thank you.
I asked Dinah Rigg a similar thing. What do you prefer, the stage or the screen? What's your preferred form?
And what did she say?
She said the stage. The stage obviously is
of course,
the
you won't get an
form.
actor who wouldn't say the stage. It's the stage, the theatre, the theatre. Why? Because you're here. You know, it's life. We've all turned up, put it in the diary, bought the ticket. decided who to go with, had something to eat, had a drink, left the evening aside. It's an event. Who does that to go to the pictures or watch television? What's on? Shall we? Oh, nobody does that anymore. They do this. Oh, for the days when you could just turn the television on and it came on, you know. You didn't have to work out. I think people can understand why theatre is the real test for an actor, because not only have we worked out roughly what we want to do and roughly what the playwright wants to do, we then have to know how to do it, which is deliver it and engage you. So theatre for me, yes.
And in terms of character, do you find it easier to play a character who's like yourself? Or do you prefer a little bit of distance?
Oh dear, I don't think about these things normally, so when you ask
No, sorry, that's all right.
it may be very interesting to you, and perhaps it should be interesting to me, but it's not something I ponder. No. I've actually forgotten what you asked me. No, come on. It's a good question. What was it?
Yeah.
Is it easier to play somebody like yourself? It's a very good question. I acted to get away from myself. I mean, as a kid. And by chance, I was quite good at it. I could copy people. I was a bit of a mimic, not very much of one, but I could get away with it, and people liked it. And they couldn't like Ian because they didn't know Ian. They didn't know that I was in love with their son. And how could I tell them? But I put on a costume and a funny beard and a funny walk, and oh, Ian, how wonderful. Yeah, I found my way to get through, which was disguise. And that worked when I became a professional actor as well. A lot of professional actors are gay and lesbian, for that reason, I think. But what I rapidly discovered, that was much more difficult than any sort of acting like that, was in playing a character of my own age, who looked like me, who spoke like me, who walked like me, and yet was not me. And I found that very, very difficult. I particularly eschewed doing love scenes. I didn't feel confident making love to a woman on stage or screen because I didn't know how it was done. I played a very famous heterosexual, John Profumo, but my first scene was having to make love to the leading lady. So I asked a friend of mine, Edward Petherbridge, the actor, I said, Edward, can you give me a few pointers? So he drew a little, I've still got it, not quite on the back of an envelope, but close, of various little positions, matchstick man and woman. I'm an expert on the missionary position. But that's about it.
Is there any character type or combination of traits you will find interesting to play, which you haven't played yet?
I don't think there is. One of the silly things about actors, if you have a success playing one sort of part, that's the only part you ever get offered. I mean, after Gandalf, nothing but old men. And once, twice, actually 3 times, God. Don't you wish you'd played Dumbledore? No, I don't. I played... I played the real wizard, you know.
I quite loved your plea for individualism and the abandonment of labels. Do you think today's identity politics helps or hinders in getting there? Thank you.
Well, on that point, I mean, I think we're going through a period of transition, you know. Getting from one place of ignorance to a place of understanding and acceptance, I suppose. So we're bound to go back a bit and then go forward a bit. And we've got to all come to terms with what it is to be transgendered. I'm bone ignorant. And I think most of us are. And until we have a bit of understanding, we're not going to have much sympathy. So, yeah, labels can be very provoking in a good way.
Throughout my A-levels, I had a poster on my pinboard of you as Gandalf. And the words on it were, "If you do not study, you shall not pass." And I wondered whether you might reenact that scene briefly for us.
You couldn't afford it. Well, I did it for the kids this afternoon. I did it for the kids this morning, so I might as well do it for the kids here. Though there are variations. Do you know, in the books, Gandalf never says you shall not pass. He says you cannot pass. Sorry, I got it wrong. But it sounded rather good, so we left it. All is not as it seems in films, and we filmed that scene with the Balrog in the studio. It was an empty studio. It was just me and a yellow line that I walked along, and that was the bridge of Khazad-dûm. And I had to pretend that, woo, there was stuff there. And in front of me was the Balrog, which I was shouting at. And it was represented by a yellow tennis ball on top of a pole. That was the. So I said to Peter Jackson, the director, I said, "What's he going to look like, the Balrog?" "Oh, I don't know yet, Ian." "You don't know? Well, how am I meant to?" He said, "It's going to be very big and black, lots of smoke. Horrible, really horrible." So I gave it my best. "You shall not bounce!"